I mean, comparatively, you could go to the Jewish calendar. It's 5,700, and I'm not super up to date on my Jewish calendar or Hebrew
We haven't
calendar.
talked a ton about religion.
We haven't.
It's one of those things where we touched upon it a little bit in the beginning of the podcast, but I don't remember the last time we talked about it. Do you want to get into it?
I was literally about to be like, so what kind of car do you like? Whoop.
Anyways. I'm excited for this one. And I'm excited, meaning I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
Okay, cool. I was going to say, I was like,
I'm excited to see
like,
what happens.
okay, cool. I was like, well, I'm glad you're excited, man. Like, I don't even know what the agenda for the day is.
Right?
But hey, man, I'm fucking excited too.
I'm excited.
I did it.
This, that, and all of it, right? I honestly don't even know if that's a real thing.
Right?
So I heard it on a Whitney Cummings podcast where she talked about in the first 10 minutes, if you've got, she's a pretty reliable source for quite a few things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not necessarily everything, but especially when it comes to like,
no offense.
You know, I go to her for information in regards to like the thing that is the thing. So like the machine behind the machine, when it comes to like production and, you know, all of these are different kind of, I think she's a great resource for that.
Yeah.
I think she's a great resource for a lot of different things. Anyways, one of her podcasts at some point, I remember her here, like she just said that it's like in the first 10 minutes, if it's got any, you know,
profanity.
Profanity or any of the things that would normally kind of get you knocked down or demonetized, they'll grab those and just push it down the chain a little bit. So I'm like, cool. Won't
do that. I
have no idea if it's accurate information or
totally.
not. It's a huge pain in my ass because that means I have to go through and listen to the first 10 minutes. And like oftentimes, especially on our show, it's just bleep, bleep, bleep,
well,
bleep.
That's what I was going to say. You're like, it wasn't a big deal, I'm sure. 10 years of the Steph and Craig show and Energy is Love, and you're like, no big deal. You're like, Ben shows up to the first episode. This.
Yeah, it's a little bit of work, but it's all good. It's funny. And I should actually research it and find out if it's actually useful.
I have single-handedly added hours of post-production. I'm real sorry.
I've got a pretty good system in place for it now.
Like,
So.
I'm getting pretty efficient at the bleeping.
Yeah.
What if I just go like, well, bleep that?
There you go.
There you go.
We could just do bleeps for the first 10 minutes because that's going to work.
Do you remember the Rocco's Modern Life where they did like the censor things?
No, I remember Rocco's, but...
Rocco, so there was a couple episodes where like, because they had like the toads, right, that were into like some weird, like they break glasses and stuff. But they had the censor bars, right? Just the black, like, and like there was an episode where like they just all walked around with these censor bars on, but like you could take them and like, this was yours, and they would like put it on. So it wasn't they were naked, you know, and we're censoring this on the television. They were wearing the censor block.
The censor bar.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. Rocco's Modern Life. Some of those old cartoons, Ren and Stimpy's, Rocco's Modern Life, even the old Beetlejuice cartoon.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a deep dive there.
Yeah.
I mean, it had to have been on for just a brief time.
Yeah, I mean, it probably only ran for a season because there was some like, you know, religious group that was like, no.
It's totally satanic.
Yeah.
That's what everything was back in the day, right?
It was.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, yeah.
You're definitely worshiping the devil.
Have you, it's not, so in the world of religious, like, I don't want to go like, you know, but like, the famous people, right?
The Pope,
the
God,
five, like the 800 club or the 500 club, like the people, the televangelists or whatever.
Okay.
There was one, and it's the episode where he's like, martial arts is Satan's, you know, like whatever.
Yeah.
Like anybody who does martial arts are satanic worshipers, and like it's the devil's art and this and that. And I was like, so this morning at jiu-jitsu, Austin, who is, have you met Austin yet?
I think so.
He's a giant.
Yeah,
He's
think
like,
it was at the belt promotion. I think I saw and met him.
Yeah. So brand new white belt, right? But like,
I want to roll with him,
dude.
Tell him he needs to come
so
to
funny
the evening
he's,
class.
He's super strong, right? I mean, he's been a physical, you know, person like I think he played a lot of sports, I think, and then he
It looks like he grew up throwing hay.
Yeah,
Like he
yeah.
reminds me of the guys that I grew up with that are farm guys
Yeah.
that are just like, what have you done your whole life? Work.
Yeah. Move things.
Yes.
Yeah. Throwing 70-pound bales of hay 10 feet in the air. But he's super tight. So, I mean, and what I like, his hips don't move. Like he's super inflexible, right? Well, we're rolling it today, and I don't remember how it even came up. So this morning we're rolling, and he's going to, he's a youth pastor, and he's got his own business. He does commercial landscape stuff, but he's going to seminary school.
Okay.
And I was like, hey, man, I was like, because I don't know. I was like, at seminary school, do you have like a thesis or like a final or something like that? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, no. But I'm probably going to do my doctorate afterwards, and there I will. And I was like, okay. I was like, you should do your doctorate on how jujitsu is Jesus's preferred martial art. And he was like, I don't know if that'll work. I was like, I think you can do it. I was like, I think there's no striking.
Right.
It's the gentle art.
Yeah. You're just helping everybody go to sleep.
Yeah.
That's all. Helping everybody get a good night's rest.
Yeah.
That sounds very Jesus-y to me.
I think that's right on path.
Uh-huh.
Right. But I think that you could make the connection. I think you could, I'm not saying it's a straight line, but I think, we could connect a couple points and really prove that, good Christian Judeo beliefs, jiu-jitsu is the way.
I think
right?
so.
Not the way, because that would probably not be, but would be the preferred.
Yeah. If Jesus, if he had a martial arts, and he probably did, right? He probably was very skilled at something, and it probably was jiu-jitsu.
Well, I'm going to say people in, 2000 and however many years ago. Well, I guess, 2,000 years ago, because he'd be a young adult if you go by the AD BC.
Didn't they change that recently?
So there's two versions of it. So there's AD after death, BC before Christ, right? And then there's BCE before Common Era, right? So they're not 100% aligned, I think. Don't quote me on this.
What's BCE?
Before Common Era. So if you were to reference time without referencing a religious point.
So it's the non-denominational way of referring to time.
The non-denominational way. It's the pagan way. But it's before Common Era, and then I guess it would be after Common Era.
Ace. So it's BCE and Ace. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. I think at some point there was somebody like, well, what about people who don't believe in Christ, like they just don't get to talk about time before that?
I mean, I think we definitely should have gotten rid of it. Like, I agree with it. Like the idea that we're, using this person to signify time in a sense, I think that's obviously asinine, but.
Right. I mean, comparatively, you could go to the Jewish calendar. That just it's 5,700, and I don't know where we're at. I'm not super up to date on my Jewish calendar or Hebrew calendar.
We haven't talked a ton about religion.
We haven't.
It's one of those things where we touched upon it a little bit in the beginning of the podcast, but I don't remember the last time we talked about it or where we. Do you want to get into it?
I was literally about to be like, so. What kind of car do you like? Whoop.
Anyways.
I think, I'm totally down to talk about religion for a minute.
How big of a factor has it played in your life, you think?
That's a super solid question. It's definitely a factor. So here's like the way that I kind of look at this is like I spent a lot of time when I was not a lot of time, but I definitely like tried to open my mind to a lot of different things as a child. And I wasn't raised necessarily with hey, you're going to be this religion or anything like that. It was just kind of this is kind of where everybody in the family feels, right? And do whatever you want, right? To be 100%, we had other things going on. There was just, it was
wasn't
like
a big factor in your life.
It wasn't a huge factor when you're over here going like, I was literally talking to my mom on the way here about some of this, but it's like it's harder, I think, for some people when your biggest concern is like when you get off the bus and you're like, oh, so we don't live here anymore. right? Because all your stuff's on the driveway or the curb or in the dumpster or whatever. Or when you wake up and you're like, where's the car? So, hey, the light switches don't work anymore, like that's a bigger deal sometimes, right?
Was it Judaism that was
kind of the predominant, like in my, so it's a really kind of convoluted all over. It's like, belief, but not practicing. Right.
Okay.
So not a super big practicing side. But that was really kind of like hey, this is kind of what Papa believes, my grandfather, this is what my mom believed, kind of their thoughts on it.
And did it come from your mom's family, from your mom's side?
Yep.
Okay.
And so it was just kind of one of those. But like I went to different like I'd have a cousin like, oh, I'm going to take the kids to Sunday school. I remember this is so not saying that this maybe turned me off to Christian beliefs early in my life, but I was in kindergarten and my older cousin is my dad's sister's daughter and she's, 20 and I'm 9 or something. She's like, hey, we're going to go to church. Like, can I bring Ben to Sunday school? My mom's like, I don't give a like, get him the fuck out of the house. Like, whatever, right? One less kid for me to deal with. She's got 2 twins, right, that are just miserable, and my brother and all this. So she's like, yeah, whatever, take them. So I go into Sunday school, and I have no idea what to do. I'm like, this is all new to me. Why do I have to wear this itchy shirt?
Were you guys going to church a lot, or
no.
Ever?
No.
Before that, kind of.
My great grandma.
They don't call it church though, right? It's going to temple.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would like not a lot of that, but not I'd go to a Baptist church for Christmas because my great grandma, was like, oh, well, this is what I believe, and it was just like, yeah, whatever, But I show up to this Sunday school and they're like, all right, and we're in Sunday school and they're like, all right, and this teacher, whatever, youth pastor, whatever. It's like, well, what song does everybody want to sing? And I raised my hand. I was like, The Wheels on the Bus. Because I'm just a talker, right? I'm like, yeah, man, I like fucking singing. Let's do this. And he looks at me and he's like, oh, I don't know that song. That's not a kind of song that we're going to sing here. And I was like, oh.
Like you just said something like Guns N' Roses
totally,
or something, right?
I'm over
Wheels on the Bus, man.
Smashing Pumpkins. Ah! No, and I was just like, oh, I fucked up. Like, all right, well, you want to go back? No. So stuff like that, but wasn't a super predominant thing. But I was always very open to it and kind of had my own belief. Like I believed in a kind of higher power out there. At the same time, because everything was going shitty, I was just kind of like, yeah, I mean, like, he's not doing anything. Like, somebody would be like, oh, it's tests. And I'm like, well, listen, here I am still passing fucking tests. How many tests are there? Right? Like, I don't know. Whole fucking world's trying to go to shit. And so you'd go through all this stuff. But I always kind of was super open to the idea, all this. My belief, when you're in the military and you are in those, not just those multiple life and death situations, super close calls. It's one of those, it reminds me of like the Pulp Fiction scene when the guy unloads the hand cannon, right? And they're like, how the hell did we not get hit?
Yeah.
Those things, it's hard to not think that something else is out there, right? My beliefs on that, right? Like there's so many times where there was one, we came back and the whole back section of the helicopter was just Swiss cheese, right? From just all these rounds going through. And my buddy Widman comes over and he's like, where were you? I was standing, I'm right back here. And he's like looking around and he's like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And he just came over and gave me a big hug and he was like, you shouldn't be. And I was like, okay. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm. Do you consider, when you think about yourself today, do you think about yourself like that you're Jewish, or do you
I have
anything?
Jewish beliefs. So I believe in God. I think that, I don't... personally, when I think about praying or Like I just pray to God, right? I have a conversation with God, and that's really just the way I think about it. Yeah. Super basic.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Mine's a little bit different.
I was going to say, I was like, tell me all about it, pagan.
Right? I grew up with definitely pagan now for sure. Definitely more in alignment with that. We got to get rid of that ADBC bullshit. But growing up in the Mormon church, there's, you know, when I say there wasn't another choice, it just wasn't, it wasn't even, I don't even feel like it was a choice. It wasn't something, it was just what we did as a family.
Yeah.
Because of the small community that we lived in and because it was Utah, I mean, it's pretty much 100% certainty that, I mean, there are only small Mormon communities in Utah.
If I meet someone and I'm like, oh, where are you from? They say Utah. I assume that they're probably Mormon.
Yeah, there's a safe bet, especially if they were like born in Utah and raised in Utah. But so that was what we went to church. That was, you know, the whole 9 yards of being involved in the church and going to church. And we did that for up until I was about 9 or 10 years old. But it also wasn't necessarily something that we practiced. It wasn't, you know, the Mormon church has a whole belief system, obviously, and it's bananas. It's definitely on the more, I mean, I think all organized religion to some extent is a cult. It is something that, you know, somebody figured out along the lines of, well, we've got a way to control people.
Yeah.
And that's what they use to control people. But I don't necessarily think it's, you know, you don't start out a cult thinking that it's for control. I think you start out a cult thinking that it's going to be helping people.
Best intentions.
Exactly.
And then it starts to be corrupted.
Yeah, and then it goes off the rails.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was wacky. I mean, it was great in childhood. That's where all my friends were. You know, we had a community there, a space there. But it was also like I never felt a part of it. I always felt like an outsider from the church. So even when we would, I mean, literally going to church every week and stuff like that, I still felt like we didn't belong there. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was one of the things that I don't know why we went really truthfully other than just to, you know, that was the thing that you did. My mom grew up in the same town.
They're like, well, nothing else is going on.
Right.
So might as well go do this.
But you know, we were involved in scouting, and scouting was a big part of the church at the time as well. So that was a component of it. So it was more or less just being part of the community. But like I said, at home, we didn't really practice any of it. We weren't, you know, saying prayers at night, or in the Mormon church, they call it family home evening, which is on Monday nights, which is like when you would have, you know, essentially the equivalent of Bible study to some extent with your family and things like that. We didn't do any of that stuff. And I was just like, we went to church, came home, changed immediately, got rid of those goddamn uncomfortable clothes.
The scratchy shirts.
Exactly. And then went outside and played and wanted to do stuff and, you know, watch movies and things like that. And then when I was a freshman in high school, they have seminary, so morning seminary, where it's before school starts. You go and it's just like a class period, but it's, you know, it's for church, it's for the Mormon church. And I started going to seminary when I was a freshman because, again, that was just what you did. It's what all my friends did. It's what my brother did. And in there, I was really starting to, because up to that point, like I said, we stopped going to church when I was like 9 or 10. And I had an understanding of what the teachings were, right? Just from sitting there week after week. But like really,
osmosis.
Yeah. You know, outside of that, I didn't really have a good understanding of what the religion was all about until that freshman year, going to seminary, learning more in depth about things and having, you know, being 14, so having a better capacity to kind of understand things.
Different perspective.
Yeah, very much so.
It's like, but I want to play my ball.
Yeah, and immediately I was just like, none of this makes any sense. All of this stuff just seems like bullshit to me. And so I would ask all these questions. And the guy that taught that seminary class was an amazing guy. He was a really sweet dude. He also was one of the tennis coaches. And so it was fun to be able to have him as seminary.
And you were playing tennis. So.
And I would ask him all of these questions all the time in class of like, well, what about this? What about this? Because the concept of that religion, I'll do my best to break it down, and I'm sure there's people out there.
We're just like, they're over here stretching their fingers like, they're all, oh man, I'm going to light you up in the comment section.
But there's a guy, Joseph Smith, who had what would we call it? He had somebody came to him,
like a vision,
an angel. Angel Moroni, I think is what it was, came to him and told him about some golden plates that were buried in the side of the mountain. So he goes and uncovers the golden plates, and those golden plates are essentially the Book of Mormon, which he turns into the Book of Mormon. And the Book of Mormon is it's the foundation of the religion.
Next version.
Yeah, it's everything that they basically base their religion off of. And then not only is he told, hey, this is where the plates are and this is what you're supposed to do and go find them and everything, but then also start the church, right? Start the religion. And that's the founding ethos in a sense, but it goes all sorts of wonky and haywire because it's not real, like it's not true. And when you start to learn about Joseph Smith and, get some facts from outside of the church, you're like, what? Like, this doesn't really make sense.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because you know more about this than I do, for sure.
We might have to ask Chat.
Yeah. Where's what's her name? Stacy? Katie?
Let's see what she's up to.
Yeah. Like, isn't there part of the story where he, hey, this person or thing comes to him and says, hey, you got to go find these plates.
Yes.
He finds the plates, comes back, tells everybody about it, and they're like, oh, well, where are the plates? And he's like, oh, and he goes and like finds them again, but the story's changed a little bit or something like that. Is that?
I'm sure there's something like that.
I don't know. I'm totally just like.
I mean, he was a charlatan. He was somebody that was very much in the space of, it's kind of like the same thing that.
You're over here talking shit about John Smith, man. You better watch out. Just saying.
I'm not concerned.
I don't know if you watched that Primeval.
I know Jesus' martial arts.
Yeah.
So I can talk as much shit about Joseph Smith as I want because I know jiu-jitsu.
If the Mormons had a martial art, what would it be?
It would definitely not be jiu-jitsu. I don't even know what it would be. It would probably be taekwondo.
Yeah, taekwondo. There's some danger in taekwondo.
Is there though?
You get kicked in the head or something like that. Like,
not like competition, real taekwondo, but like the type of taekwondo that they, that they teach in Grantsville.
That the Mormons would teach.
Yeah. The Mormons teach in Grantsville.
Listen,
that's exactly what
I watched that Primeval show.
Yes.
And that's totally changed some of my thoughts on the Mormons.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? What happened was Joseph Smith starts his church in Illinois, Nauvoo or something like that. He starts it back east somewhere, and he eventually gets ran out of town because it's bonkers crazy stuff. Yeah. And in conjunction with polygamy, like polygamy is one of the founding tenets of the church, right? But
I can see where no. I'm kidding. Jamie.
Sister wives are nice. More people to help with the things. But no, they get run out of town. I'm sure it's for a myriad of things because he was basically just a charlatan, and he starts to head west. At some point, he's murdered or killed or dies or something like that, and Brigham Young picks up the torch. And he doubles down on polygamy. Like it's the foundation of the religion in a sense. And in Utah still today, there's polygamous sects all over the state. There's some in Grantsville, like there's on the outside of town, when you're leaving town, you drive past their houses and that's where the polygamists live because their houses are huge and they've got, 60 windows on a side. Like it's this huge compound in a sense.
60 windows on a side?
Well, do you know what I mean? It's like because of all the rooms, all the bedrooms and stuff like that.
I was like, did they just like windows only look to one side? It's in the book. Right. We only look west.
Exactly. We only put windows on the west side of buildings. All windows have to go on the west.
West facing windows. Somebody cuts a hole in a wall.
Yeah. But so he gets run out of town. He gets murdered. Brigham Young heads west. And it's all just the terrible.
Is Brigham Young the guy in the.
He's the old dude in.
Primeval?
Yeah.
The governor or whatever?
Yes, the governor of Utah.
Okay, cool.
Right, the self-appointed governor of Utah.
Yeah.
Right, the guy that says,
listen, I give him credit. Like in that show, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to buy your fort just for this astronomical amount of money. And he's like, what are you going to do with it? I'm going to burn it.
Right.
And you're like, what? He's like, yeah, there's no more like checkpoint here or whatever,
Yeah, and that's very much what the church was all about. There's in the beginning of that series, American Primeval, they have that massacre, right? And they talk about it in the church it's the Meadows, more, I can't remember what it's called. Again, like there's people out there that are just going to be like, you're butchering everything, and we very much are. Obviously, we're not theologists. I'm not a theologian.
Listen, I've read a lot of books.
I haven't. I've listened to a lot of podcasts and I've watched a lot of movies.
There you go.
But
basically an expert.
Yeah. The church is crazy, but it gets its foothold in Utah and creates its, empire from that point forward. And that's all it is.
I think
it's
an
just
empire is a good way to say that.
It's an empire.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's insane, the amount of money that the church has.
Yeah.
They had a big issue in the last couple of years. It's probably in the last decade or so, where, it got uncovered how much wealth they actually had.
Yeah.
And it was something like 36 billion or something. It was just this insane amount of money that they're
like ranked 7th.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, Elon Musk and, Warren Buffett, and then right below them, like Larry Edelson, the Mormons.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, they do all of those things that corporations do, where they create, shell companies to buy property and do all these kind of different things in order to hide all of that money around. But then they present it as, oh, we're just this kind religion. We're just this thing. But I mean, part of the church, also part of the religion, is tithing. Mm-hmm. And so you're giving, I think it's like 10% of your income every month to the church. And, they're using that for X, Y, and Z, but really they're just sitting on it. And what they did when that happened, all of that stuff came out, they had to hurry up and figure out how to hide their money even more. So they just started building temples everywhere.
Yeah.
And so before, you had the big temple in downtown Salt Lake, which is the headquarters.
Yep. I've seen that one.
Yeah. And truthfully, it's a beautiful building.
Beautiful building.
We would go there almost every year for Christmas time, because they decorate the temple grounds with lights. And, I mean, it's really, really beautiful. So that was a great little family tradition, where they would let the heathens into the temple, and we just get to look at all the pretty lights and stuff like that.
Dave, my stepdad, I think, has been there and got to listen to the chorus practice.
Yeah, the tabernacle choir. Yeah.
And talked about just how beautiful and how great it sounded and just all that.
Yeah, it is that's the other thing too. And I think this is the same case with all religions, is there's plenty of good in there, right?
Totally.
There's plenty of good things.
And I think that goes back to it's best intentions, right? If you look at and I talk about this with in Judaism, so there's your 10 commandments, right? And there's another 640 something that fall that nobody ever talks about, but that's where the basic, we don't mix two fabrics, right? And we don't we don't boil meat in the milk of its mother, which is where we don't mix meat and dairy, right? We don't eat sea life that crawls on its belly, all these things. Most of that was just because hey man, stop eating the fucking pigs, because they're getting you sick. Right. And if you don't cook the pork enough, there's worms in it and you're going to fucking die. So if nope, God said, no more pork. We're just not eating it anymore. So we can, not die. And some of it, when you polygamy is one thing, and I think this actually is a tenet, and I'll say it, and you can tell me. So in some versions of Judaism, it would be if my brothers passed away, I would take his wife as mine to ensure that she's taken care of. That's kind of the idea of it, right? In my belief, that's kind of the idea, is she's his family, he's not here, I'm going to step up and help take care of. But then you get into the weird stuff where it's also in the book that I shouldn't see my brother's wife naked, right? And then you're okay, but she is my wife, and as my wife, we should reproduce. So we cut a hole in this sheet.
Yeah.
And hey, I can't look at you naked, but
it's so wacky.
Yeah. So I see there are parts of this that are good intentions, right? And then sometimes you're what? I'm really waiting for the newer religion to come out and be social media is bad.
Right?
Right? That'll be on the 17th day, we banned social media, or something like that. It's just it's stupid.
We'll see if that one takes hold. I don't know.
Now, is Mormon, so in Mormonism, or is that what you just call it? Mormonism?
Yeah, Mormonism.
Mormon. Okay.
Yeah.
So do they also think about the first like part of the Bible, like the first 5 books of what we would know like I know as the Torah, like the Bible, or is it just like, hey, John Smith was the beginning?
It's Joseph Smith.
Joseph Smith, my bad.
Right.
Joseph.
I'm highly offended right now.
Get it right.
Yeah, I think they do. I think because there's the Old Testament and the New Testament, right? Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Woolly. Most fabrics today are packed with synthetic materials and microplastics that shed off into the environment as well as into your skin.
And that's why we love Woolly, because their gear is made with natural merino wool. No synthetics, no microplastics, just high-performance, sustainable clothing that's going to keep you comfortable any season.
Woolly's merino wool is breathable, moisture-wicking, and built to last. Plus, it's naturally odor-resistant, which means you can wear it longer and wash it less.
And right now, Brave Men Dare listeners, and I'm talking about you guys, can get an extra 15% off. So check out the link down in the doobly-doo. Make sure you use that promo code BRAVE, all caps, when you're checking out of getting some of that fresh, high-quality woolly gear.
Woolly. More wool, less plastic. Yeah. I think they do acknowledge the Old Testament to some extent.
Okay.
But I actually, if I'm remembering correctly, and there's a chance that I'm not, like there's a good chance that I'm not remembering it correctly, I think they believe that the Book of Mormon predates even the Bible. And so that essentially it's like the Book of Mormon is the Word of God that,
he buried
in the side of a mountain in North America.
Yeah.
Waiting for some guy in I think it's truthfully like the 1800s. It's not that old.
I was going to say, I was like, Mormon religion is not that old.
It's not that old, or it's definitely not that old. And
I mean, way to go, Mormons, for being like really kind of the new kids on the block, and they're kind of taking hold.
I mean, way to go, it's a cult, dude.
Yeah.
Them and Scientologists, they're neck and neck on who's going to, win the torch. It's ridiculous when I think about it that's the other thing that's really, really sad is that a lot of the people that I grew up with have, they've gotten to a point in their life where they turn away from the church and they recognize it as like the truth of what's really behind
There's some goofiness.
Yeah, there's a lot of goofiness.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things about it that, I mean, it was like I think it wasn't until, I know in the 70s they came out and said something about like, I can't remember when they got rid of polygamy technically, when they were like, oh, it turns out.
They're like, oh yeah, we don't do that.
Yeah, that's the thing is we don't do that anymore, but we totally still do that.
We totally still do that.
And there's so many different things like that it's really sad because I think at the end of the day too, it was, selling something to people and I mean, I think that's what all religion does. It gives you something to believe in so that you have something to believe in, so that you don't feel so alone in this big, scary world.
I think it gives you not just, I think that's a great tenet is like, hey, I'm not alone. Mm-hmm. But I think the other thing is it gives you something to put this on. Like, I always think about the fucking creeper that we had. I don't remember his name. He came to the gym. He was the creeper that I was like, hey, you can't come in. And then, anyways, he was a fucking idiot, right? Like the first time I talked to this guy, he's a super young guy, and he's got like the stud right here. Do you remember who I'm talking about?
Yeah, I remember who you're talking about.
And he comes in, and young guy, I was like, oh, he's like, yeah, I'm from here, but I went to California to become a man. I was like,
okay.
I lived in California. Like, I'm not quite sure how that works out.
Which part of the state?
Were you in NorCal? Like, what are you doing? You're out in the high desert? But he has, because he believes himself to be super religious, he's forgiven for all the, when he has, I think on 5 occasions now, sexual indecent exposure. He's yanking it at the park. And he's like, or he's like, oh, I'm a sex addict, but God's going to forgive me. It's okay if I send dick pics to your daughter, right? Whereas I'm over here like, burn them. I think that should be that could be a staple in all religions.
I think at the end of the day, I mean, like if we go back to 14-year-old Craig in seminary, I got to the point with it where it was like, okay, none of this makes any sense to me. And that guy, the teacher that taught the class, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, at some point, he was just like, Craig, I don't have answers for all of these questions that you're asking. You just have to believe at some point, right?
Faith's got to take over at some point.
It comes down to faith, and you just have to kind of have an experience of it. And I was like, cool, yeah, well, I'm out. And so I didn't, I was done with seminary. I didn't go on. There's a mission that you go on, Mormon mission, when you graduate from high school. And I didn't go do that. I was just done with it at that point. And I truthfully kind of floated around without any sort of religion or belief system for a really long time. And it wasn't until... It was right around the time that I met Steph. It wasn't until like 2010, in my late 20s, early 30s, that then I started going down that path of spirituality and energy and meditation and all of those other kind of experiences and those kind of things and all of that and card play.
Well, I see the card that's like, you're like, just fucking go. I
got it.
God. Oh!
I got mad chops.
There you go. You do got mad chops.
But that's my belief now. And I think that that's the fun thing too, is I think that they're all reflecting the same thing, just with different versions. And that's the other thing too, is I think everybody gets free will is a thing. I think it's everybody's right and opportunity.
I promise
to
you,
choose.
free will is a thing.
Right?
Like I could...
It's totally a thing.
Yeah.
I think it's built into the matrix and for a reason. And I think that everybody gets to find their path back to the thing. And for me, the thing is just love. It's just a big ball of unconditional love that we all come from and stem from. And that's what we're all working our way back towards. And so however we get there is our path. It's however we get there. So I can't tell you how to get there. You can't tell me how to get
100%.
there. Everybody's got to find that path there on their own.
Yeah.
But that's my belief system now, where I don't assign to any organized religion. It's more or less just a belief in consciousness. I don't even assign it to some sort of like higher power or individual thing of like God or anything like that. It's just consciousness that we all stem from and connect to. And that's what we're all going. And when I say going, like we're going somewhere, it's all journey. Now. It's all happening now. We're all connected to it now. It's all happening now.
But
we're experiencing
if you're connected to it
now,
you were connected to it yesterday, you'll be connected to it tomorrow.
There is no yesterday or tomorrow. It's now.
Now.
It's only now. It's only now. That's all it is. But time is a construct of the matrix. So we exist in the matrix, and it's got rule sets and things like that, right? Look at your watch.
I'm looking at my watch.
Because you're in the matrix looking at your watch. Yeah. And it's just something that we have to pay attention to because it's built into the system of this experience that we have. But it's also just an illusion. It's just something that is pretend.
Isn't that
the beginning and end and a middle?
Part of like, is it the Matrix where they're like the control is that you have a choice, right? You believe that you have a choice, therefore you are controlled, or something like that.
I don't know if it's.
I could just be making all this shit up.
Because he gives them the choice, right? The red pill or the blue pill.
Yeah, but this could really just be like a acid flashback.
Hey, I watched when The Matrix came out. It was a pivotal moment in my life. It was 1999. I was graduating high school. I was at a...
It wasn't 99.
Yeah. Google it. Not Matrix it. Chat GPT it. Let's find out.
I think because I took a girl on a date to go see The Matrix, and I believe that I drove.
99.
Damn.
Yep. Let's find out the March 31st of 99. So we're coming up on the, whatever that would be, the 25th, 6th anniversary.
Speaking of anniversaries, happy birthday.
Thank you.
The anniversary of your birth.
Yes.
Yes. You are
44 years old.
44 years old.
I feel great.
You look
strong.
great.
I feel happy. I feel good.
Yeah.
Heading towards that.
Got way more hair than I do.
Yeah. Well, you got to believe. I've always believed in my hair.
I've been believing that. I haven't had a belief about me having hair for almost 30 years.
I don't know why I have all the hair that I do. It's definitely the Mexican side of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the people on that side have really beautiful hair and long hair. Not long hair, but luscious hair. My grandfather, who passed away a few years back, he had good hair his whole entire life.
I have a great grandfather that died at like 90 in his 90s, full head of like black hair.
Yeah.
Right. He's the only one. Everybody else, no hair.
No hair.
No, that's not true. My Uncle Dean, he's in his 60s. He's got a full head of hair too.
I want to go back to The Matrix.
Yeah, let's go back to The Matrix.
Because it was, like I said, it was a pivotal time in my life because it was like, it's that age, I'm graduating high school soon, realizing now that it was March 31st, 1999. That's amazing. I'm excited about that. So I had just turned 18 and I was lost. I was truthfully lost. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. It was that time frame where all of my friends, I had a really good core group of buddies that I grew up with, like legitimately grew up with, right? Some of them, Alan Mortson was my best friend in first grade.
Yeah.
And so we, everybody that I went to high school with, I went to elementary school with.
Yeah.
So it's this really good group of guys that I grew up with. And, almost all of them were going on missions after high school. So you graduate and then you get just like the briefest of summertime and then they go on their mission. So I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was supposed to go to high school.
You went on a road trip and you met a girl.
Well, it wasn't just the road trip.
That was your mission.
Yeah. That was my mission. That was my mission from God. But when The Matrix came out, I went and saw probably 10 times in the theater.
Really?
Yeah. I just went and saw it over and over and over again.
I don't know if I've ever seen a movie. Oh, I've definitely seen a movie twice in the theater. I don't remember which one.
Yeah.
You went 10 times.
Yeah. It was
Did
amazing.
you have a trench coat?
I did.
Yeah.
I definitely bought a trench coat. Everything was really cool all up until that point when it wasn't cool to have trench coats anymore.
Yeah,
that was a really terrible thing that took place, obviously. And if you're not familiar, I don't know how you can't be, but surely there's people listening that aren't familiar with what we're talking about. But obviously Columbine, school shooting and everything back in the day was terrible.
That was terrible.
Yeah. But before that, I loved my trench coat. And it was such an impactful movie for me. And then it also kind of shaped and molded a lot of different things over the course of my life because it's like anything else where it was like a good book that just grew with me. Yeah. So I would go back to it and go back to it and go back to it. And
did you and just for mine, did you enjoy the other Matrix movies as much as?
Not as much as the original.
Yeah.
I feel like the original, was definitely a complete film in and of itself. I don't think we really needed the other ones. However, I didn't complain. I was very happy. And even with the most recent one.
I was going to say, what did you think of the most recent one?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really pleased with the most recent one.
Yeah. I thought that I didn't think it was bad. I like where they tried to take the story. It was a little like layers within layers within layers. And like, so what are we going to do now? Another layer.
Yeah, I think about it like when I look at it from a spiritual perspective, because you've got Neo who basically wakes up, right? He has a realization that there's more, that there's something else, and has, an awakening process, a spiritual awakening in a sense, right? And then he goes through that whole, it's the hero's journey that he goes through to become this enlightened person. And once he becomes that enlightened person, then he can free other people from the Matrix, right? And I think about that. I mean, that's the story of Christ. That's the story of Buddha. That's the story of all of these pivotal people in our, experience that we look to as examples. And so that's all that movie's about to some extent. But then when you see the one that came out just a few years ago, and it's like, wait a minute, he's back in the Matrix. And I think that speaks to the truth of it is, it's like, especially when you're in this like avatar human form of trying to constantly, live a spiritual life, be connected, do all these kind of different things, like do unto yourself that you would,
do unto others.
Yeah. All of the great things that religion offers up to people. It takes a lot of practice, and it's hard to constantly be in that state. And so you'll see that a lot of times where people will have, and I've had many experiences like this where suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, this is how my life's going to be now from this point forward, because I've seen the light in a sense, right? I've seen the thing. And then eventually you go back to your routines and your patterns and the things that not obviously, but I think oftentimes feel safer.
Yeah.
And so
I think some people can stick with some of those things when they have those big changes, right?
Yeah.
They can, especially, I always remember, and I think a lot about like AA and NA. Like part of that's like finding the higher power, right? And I think some of that goes back to one, the ability for, for those groups to, I don't want to say relinquish some responsibility of some of this, but there's part of it was like, no, this is how I am. So I just have to become okay with this. And then I need to ask for forgiveness and, put my faith in this higher power and stuff like that.
Have you ever been to any of those meetings?
Oh yeah, I went to rehab once.
Yeah.
And that's a big tenet for what they send there. The Marine Corps thought I had an alcohol problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So turned out I didn't have an alcohol dependency. I had an alcohol abuse problem, which, I mean, you could kind of say about most Marines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a go-to coping mechanism.
We were founded in a bar.
Right?
Legit. Really? Yeah. The Marine Corps was founded, Samuel Nichols founded the Marine Corps November 10th, 1775 in Tun Tavern, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They're rebuilding Tun Tavern. And there's actually, I have the pictures of me and the kids because there's a sign right now because it's been gone for 100 years almost. But that's where the Marine Corps was founded. And there's a sign and it's, hey, this is the birthplace about, we think Tun Tavern was about right here, probably 50 feet under the road right now. But we think it was right here. And here's a sign, here's the birthplace of the Marine Corps. And I donated to it because they're rebuilding it. And it was like, hey, if you donate a certain amount, you get a mug with your name on it and it hangs on this wall. And I was like, fuck yes.
Hell yeah.
I was like, take my money. But yeah, the Marine Corps is the only branch of the military that was founded in a bar. It's a big deal. It's literally part of our ethos.
Yeah. It's built into the infrastructure.
It's 100% built into the infrastructure. We have our parties around it, right? It's a big deal. Anyways, I went to rehab, and it's so funny because in that stuff, like, here's the deal. Like, if you are an alcoholic or an addict and like, do I believe in AA and NA? Abso-fucking-lutely. If you take somebody who's a meth head and is stealing and sex working and all these different things that you tend to fall into because of this, and then I say, here's a program that you can follow and read this book and go to these meetings and you can find a productive way into society and life and without murdering yourself slowly and surely with these chemicals. Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Right? The hard part that I got into is, and what I realized quickly when I sat down, I mean, it was so fun. I sat down and in this, my first small group, and I'm in this, it was military rehab. And there's this guy.
It wasn't voluntary, was it?
What?
Was it mandated for you to be there?
It was mandated. It was like, hey, there's this or another place you can go. We like to call it the break. That's a different story. But I'm sitting in this small group and there's 14 of us. And I look around and this guy's like, oh yeah, I've got a heroin problem. And I'm like, wow. I wouldn't even know where to get full, no joke. There's a guy who I'm still friends with. His name's Raspberry. Well, it's not not Raspberry. His name's John Rosenberry or something like that, but we call him Raspberry. Great guy. And we're walking to chow, first day in, me and him, hey, we've checked in same day. We're in the same group and we're walking to chow. And I'm like, yeah, man, so what's up? What are you in? And what are you in for? And he's like, Molly. And I was like, oh, who's that? And he looks at me and he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, is she a person that got you in trouble?
Right.
And he's like, yeah.
She got me in a lot of trouble.
A lot of trouble. Met her at a party. And I was like, oh, is she famous? I just didn't I didn't know. I had just, it wasn't, my awareness had never understood that stuff.
I feel the same way. I feel like drugs were not a part of obviously in small town Utah, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't something that
There's
I
not
really
a lot
experienced. I didn't even come across weed until I was 18 or 19 or something. And it was I went to this girl's house and it was weird. It was such a weird experience because it was I had this job. This would have been right after high school too, before I did the whole Minnesota thing with the girl that I met on the internet and everything. And she met her there at the job that I was having, and she was having a little party, a little get together. So I go to this thing, and I knew she wanted me. Like I knew that it wasn't like, hey, come to this party and hang out.
She was like,
she was totally into the Craig.
She's like, I want to smoke me some of that Craig.
Yeah.
Show.
And so I go to this thing, and they're smoking weed, and I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. I felt so uncomfortable and so weird, and it was like, I think I just got drunk.
There you go.
Yeah, I might have smoked. I don't remember.
Yeah. Right.
If somebody's listening, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. I didn't touch it. I don't know.
It's crazy sometimes when the first time you get. It's one thing I think, like if I was at a party and all of a sudden I looked over and somebody was shooting themselves in the arm, I'd be like, whoa, that guy's doing heroin, right?
I remember a party once when they started cutting lines of Coke.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I thought we were just playing pool and drinking, guys.
Yeah.
What's going on? It blew me away. I was like, okay.
Like it's all-purpose flour. You'll be fine. I remember we were having a house party, and pretty sure we were all like, smoking a joint or whatever. And this girl walks over and she's like, hey, and starts cutting up a line. And I was like, oh, you're like in a party. She's like, yeah. She's like, this is that new school. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, it's this meth. And I had no idea what it was. And it's so funny because I'm pretty sure my dad smoked it all the time. Or like, I don't know. I know he smoked a lot of weed, but I looked at her and I was like, what is it? And she's like, yeah, my buddy makes it in his kitchen with household products. Do you want some? And I was like, no. Like, the way, like when someone says it that way,
right?
You're like, hey, do you want to put some bleach in your body? I'd be like, I'm pretty sure
you're not a selling point.
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to ingest that stuff. And that was my first, like, no. Like, why would you? And I can say that to this day, I've never done meth or any of that stuff. But I was just like, you just, borax? Yeah. Like, I don't understand, right? Yeah. Like, marijuana, I totally understand. Like, it's a plant, right? And it's one of those things, like, it's not a new thing. Like, it's been smoked for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how true that is.
Yeah, thousands.
I'm just saying I don't know how true that is.
I think so.
Is there a book out there about, like, the history of the ganja?
I'm sure there is.
Well, because there's books about, like, where they talk about, like, the different liquors and how they've expressed themselves throughout time, and salt.
Right.
You know, how,
and all sorts of different stuff.
But I wonder, like, if you could really go, like, at what millennia did we really start to cultivate the wacky tobacco?
Well, I mean, obviously native cultures, right? I mean, peyote and everything like that, it's all just in conjunction with that. So it's been around it's been around as long as humans have been around. I think we've always used plants for a variety of
medicinal
things.
Purposes.
Not even medicinal purposes, right? It's just like they're there to support the body. They're there to support the system. They're there to support our experience and our journey.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like the koalas.
What about
they eat like the eucalyptus, and it fucks them all up.
Are you sure? Because I feel like eucalyptus is the only thing that they eat. That's just so that they get fucked up. I've never heard that it fucks them up. I just heard that that's like their primary.
Positive.
They only eat the eucalyptus.
I think that that'd
be hilarious if the only reason.
Dude, I'm telling you, like I think that they just eat a bunch of eucalyptus to get fucked up. I'm gonna look it up.
That would be awesome.
How do you spell koala? K?
It's Koala. By the way, I was third place spelling bee champ in 7th grade.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Oh, you
koala. Koa.
There you go. Koalas mainly eat eucalyptus leaves, which are toxic to most animals. They have a special additive that allows them to survive on this diet. Why do koalas get high on eucalyptus? Break the leaf in the pulp. The leaves. Koalas don't get high or drugged out, despite rumors they don't. Bullshit.
They sure look like they are.
Dude, I was super excited. I thought that I was like...
Well, let's just live under that myth. I like it. That's the matrix I want to live in, where koalas are just like, hey, why do you guys keep eating this? It just fucks us up. They're just so high all the time.
All the time. I don't know. My current boss just sent me some like, hey, we're going to meet on December 20th. What?
Like, have fun with that.
Yeah, I'm not going to be here, friend.
So I've never done any hard drugs.
Yeah, I've never done any hard drugs.
Right. Marijuana, mushrooms, MDMA.
Never done that.
I want to do some acid at some point. I wouldn't mind doing some DMT, but I'm not interested
AT&T.
in AT&T.
I don't know, man. Anytime somebody starts just throwing out, it just remembers me
THC.
the Rocket Man movie. Do you ever remember? You see that movie?
No.
Rocket Man. I don't remember the comedian's name. It's an older movie. He was in. I think he was in. What was the Dave Chappelle movie about getting high? Not How High. Was it?
We're so terrible. If there's one thing that people should know by listening to this episode, not only this episode, but the podcast in general, is we are not the go-to source for nearly any information.
No. We're really just regurgitating half thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, in
Dave
the movie,
Chappelle's show about getting high.
No, okay. So in the movie Rocket Man, he's a comedian, and he's like, they need him to go to Mars, but he's not a trained astronaut, but he has to be the guy to like fix something or do something.
Okay.
And they're like, we're going to make this guy go. And they're like sitting in the rocket getting ready to blast off. And they're like, DHS check. And he's like, AT&T. And they're like, RMC, go, no go, go, and he's like, TNT, and he just starts throwing out like CNN, just these acronyms, and just so anytime somebody drops like a few of those in a row, and I'm like, AT&T,
right. MSNBC,
yeah. I'm just like, I can't say that one. MSNBC. Yeah, it's too many.
I have questions for you if you're comfortable. When you brought up Rehab, I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk more about that.
Yeah, I'll talk about it.
I feel like I have had many issues over the course of my life with addiction and with things like that, but I don't consider myself, I see addiction so differently than I've ever seen it before in my life. And I kind of view it, and it's mine, right? It's the way that I see it and the way that I view it. And I think, addiction is just an indication that you're using something in order to cope and manage with the emotions and the things that are underneath that. Mm-hmm. So it's life presents a bunch of different things that we have a hard time managing and feeling and processing. And over the course of our life, we learn how to get that need met. And oftentimes it's with substances or with, all the different things that we use in order to, satiate that thing inside of us. Yeah. And so
scratch that itch.
Yeah. But I don't think that people are addicts in the sense of like, well, it's, I think you're genetically predisposed at times, not for addiction, but for how you manage and deal with. It's almost like your parents give you just like they give you your, like your hair color, your eye color, the structure of your body, all these different things that are kind of like given to you not in childhood, but in birth through DNA and all the genes and all those kind of like sciencey things. I think there's also emotional things that we are given, and that's what sets up. So that's the predisposition to addiction. And it's not necessarily because you're an addict or because you're always going to be an addict. It's because you have a predisposition to emotional immaturity and an inability to process and
needing
deal
something
with
to be supportive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I can see over the course of my life lots of different times when I've been addicted to something because that was the thing that I was using in order to avoid the other thing that I was, having a difficult time processing and or feeling. But I don't think that, like, that was the thing that I always got stuck with when it came to like AA and everything like that, where it's like, once an addict, always an addict, like the mindset of like the way that they hit that home with it. Yeah.
So if you get a chance, I actually recommend like read the AA handbook, the good book or the big book.
I think it's the again, we're the worst source for information this morning.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right.
That book.
There's because I've read it.
I think it's the big book.
The big book. That's what it is. Yep. 100% correct. In the big book, they talk about, so there's you probably, and there are different people, right? There are the people who are like, yeah, I can have a drink or not. It's not a big deal. It doesn't matter whatsoever, whatever. Then there are the people who are like, hey, I want to cope with something, so I'm going to use this to cope. But when I'm done, I don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
And then there are the the addicts, and it doesn't matter. There is no amount of coping. There is no amount of satiation. There is no amount of scratching that itch. They will always be addicts. And truly understanding this, again, my opinion on this based on my shitty knowledge, you're replacing one thing with another. I'm getting rid of the booze. I'm getting rid of the meth, the coke, whatever it is. Probably not weed, but
Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Heritage Still. If you're serious about quality in the kitchen, it's time to check out Heritage Still. All their cookware is handcrafted right here in Tennessee.
Heritage Steel isn't just another cookware brand. This is American craftsmanship at its finest, using high-quality, multi-clad stainless steel to give you unmatched durability, precision, and performance. Whether you're searing, sauteing, simmering, or good old-fashioned pan frying, these pans are built to last for generations.
Their cookware is safe for any cooking surface, it's easy to clean, and every piece comes with a lifetime warranty.
And right now, Brave Men Dare listeners, I'm talking to you. You guys can save an extra 10% off. Go over to www.heritagesteel.us/brave. Make sure you use the promo code BRAVE, all caps, to get that extra 10% off at checkout. Upgrade your kitchen with a cookware that's going to stand the test of time.
Heritage Still, chef-grade cookware for less.
I'm getting rid of that dependency and I'm putting all that into this. The difference is this makes me worse. This makes me better, right? Like the tenets of AA. Like if you look through all the 12 steps, like they're all good things.
Yeah, it's totally
take a fucking inventory, right? Like, hey, forgive yourself.
It's a spiritual journey.
It really is, right? And that's the other thing of like AA or NA. It's a higher power.
Exactly.
Which could be anything. I've talked to people who are like, yeah, like my family is my higher, like I'm doing all of this for my fucking family. Mm-hmm. Great. I fucking support that, right? I do it because I believe in this fucking three-eyed cat, and that's my higher, whatever. But there are these different kinds of people. And through that book is what really made me realize, like, okay, I can see where I fall into this, right? Because of a series of traumatic and personal and work-related, so deployments, shitty marriages, shitty relationships, loss of family members, like my dad dying, all this stuff, I turned to booze and to cope with all this. And I think going through that process helped me understand that, but also helped me understand what kind of person I am when it comes to that. I mean, Friday, yeah, like I would, if I had to really do an average count, I think in the last, I'll go 10 years. I don't think I've had more than 7 drinks in a month, minus some like, Jamie and I went to Mexico for a work trip. We were in fucking Cabo for 4 days in an all-inclusive. I drink more than 7 times, right? Like that's 100% what happened. I sat by a pool in Cabo with a whatever.
Yeah.
And I got drunk. And I was like, yeah, I was having a super fun time. I was watching coworkers hit on my CEO's wife. It was super fun, right? So, but on the average, I think I had 1 drink on Friday night, and I don't remember any time else I drank in February, really.
Yeah.
So it's just not a thing that I do on a regular basis. But in the book, it talks about this and like what kind of person you are. And the hard part is, as someone who's not an addict, it's hard for us to see what that is because we don't have that same feeling or experience. We are trying to put our thoughts and beliefs in how we perceive things and deal with things in the shoes of someone who can't do that. So it's hard for us to, well, why don't you just stop?
Yeah, I definitely don't think of it that way, right? It's not like, well, just stop that behavior. Because like I said, I've got tons of things in my life that I have used from that like I've definitely got the addictive gene.
What have you
in
been
me,
addicted
right?
to?
Cigarettes.
Yeah.
Porn, gambling, alcohol.
Gambling?
Marijuana. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a real heavy gambling era.
Like casino or
Poker.
poker?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the Texas Hold'em.
Yeah.
Thought that I was Thought that I was going to make it big. Thought that I was going to, Rounders came out and I thought, well, shit.
This is a great movie.
I found a path. This
Right.
is going to be it. It turns out it wasn't.
No.
I'll jump forward, fast forward to the end there. I did not win the World Series of Poker.
Yeah.
I did not, have my big match against Teddy KGB and take my 10K and double it. And
Check.
Yeah. No, I did not get to replay that Matt Damon movie, unfortunately, in real life. I tried multiple times, though.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
At least you tried.
Wendover, Nevada is just on the other side of the border.
Yeah, Utah.
Yeah. So it was 90 minutes from Grantsville. So it was a quick, easy drive out there, and went out there quite frequently on a pretty regular basis, and donated quite a bit of money
Okay.
to the casinos out there.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Okay. Fuck off.
Go ahead.
No. Do you feel like do you see a difference between addiction and hyperfixation?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I think because there's things that I have been, like for me, addiction, when I get into an addiction, like I said, I've been really able to understand it from that place of like, it is the coping mechanism that I'm using in order to avoid addressing the thing that I'm avoiding, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that I don't want to feel. And so when it comes up, then I'm going to go towards the coping mechanism, which
Gotcha.
takes many different forms.
Okay.
But hyperfixation for me is just like shit that I'm really excited about and that
Yeah.
I'm really into, where it might border on sometimes, obsessiveness, but it's not something that I'm using necessarily. I don't know, maybe it is at times.
Right?
I could see, if I look back over the course of my life, I could see where there were
You
things
start obsessing about this, but you're not thinking about this.
Yeah. I could definitely see some, it's a slippery slope that you could get into that space as well. I mean, in some ways, hyperfixation, like when I was in that era of gambling a lot, I was also like, I don't know if you're familiar with Doyle Brunson. Have you ever heard of Doyle Brunson and his book Super System and the whole night? Like I was like
all about it.
I'm going to study this and learn all these things and learn how to count cards.
Yeah.
I was counting cards for a while and doing all sorts of
I did that
fun
on a
things.
deployment.
Did you?
Yeah. I read like 5 books on it. I used to sit there
Yeah.
and just flip cards.
Same thing. Got to keep the count.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. +1, +2, -1.
Yeah, and then I would the problem that I would get to is as soon as they go into multiple decks, like I can't do the math. I'm terrible at math, and so it's like I can do the count, but if they've got a shoe with 6 decks that they're drawn from, I can't keep track. I can keep track of the count, but I can't do the math on the back end to figure out how it all plays out.
Yeah, it's just I think it's the easy way that I taught myself that was every deck is 4.
Okay.
The big shift in percentages for me was like, hey, so if I'm on one deck, anytime I'm up, the count's +4, right? Like I'm going to start betting more, right? Start betting more, right?
Yeah.
And every time the deck is, if I've got, we'll call it a 4-deck shoe, hey, anytime we're in the high teens, I'm going to like start up in my bet, right? So it's that trying to find that ratio, basically. Where does it become advantageous for me to start to increase my bets because of the count, right? And then it's just multiplied across the number of decks, right?
Yeah, that's the part that I never got. So,
Gotcha.
I mean, I can do single decks, but if we've got, like I said, they've got the shoe that they're drawing from, that they're dealing from, how do I account for the 6 decks?
Yeah, you just have to increase the ratio.
Again, that's like...
I'm over here like, you don't see the numbers, Craig?
Just quit. Why don't you just stop drinking, dumbass? You're telling me shit in jiu-jitsu now. Just get up.
Yeah.
What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
turn the porn off, right?
Just get up. If they're
Just get
choking
up.
you,
Yeah,
just get up.
Just stand up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super easy.
Just super easy.
Like, what do you mean increase the ratio?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Okay.
We don't need to explain it right now.
Yeah.
But what were we talking about? Addiction
And
the things-
hyperfixation.
Hyperfixation. I can see how they kind of coexist and can coexist. I mean, truthfully, for me, the things that have helped me navigate all of these things, it's just healing. It's being able to actually get to the core of what I was avoiding. Being able, like when I got fired from being a cop, it was like I very much went down the rabbit hole of alcohol.
Yeah.
Where that was my main coping
Yeah.
mechanism. I was drinking every day, Michelob Ultras. It was very consistent. At least they're ultras, right?
Right.
But I mean, it was to the point, dude, where I would go down to wherever I was buying them, right? Maverick was a gas station that's over there in the western part of the country. Yeah. Go down to Maverick, get my Michelob Ultra, and then I would buy like the Tall Boy Bud Light Limeritas.
Oh, yeah.
And drink that on the way home while I'm driving home. And then kill the 12-pack of Michelob Ultra over the course of the day, doing whatever it was that I'm doing, right? I'm doing yard work.
Yeah.
But truthfully, I'm just getting drunk while I'm outside fucking around. What's that?
You're not walking a beat.
I'm not walking a beat. But, it got really bad to where, I was pretty much drunk on a consistent basis for quite a long time.
Yeah, I get that. My last deployment, when I came back from my last deployment, I basically just was drunk.
Yeah.
Which led to all kinds of,
fun.
Yeah. I give a lot of the guys I served with at the time, like they really did a good job, I think, giving me like understanding where I was at. And I feel bad looking back at it now. Like I'd been married and she like, I'm leaving. This is done.
Yeah.
Like we went to marriage counseling and it like, we sat down and she was like, I'm leaving you. And I was like, the upside is this like super old, like Ask Annie, or is that the column?
Ask Alice. Go Ask Alice.
That's not the column. It's not Alice. What's the column? So. Is it Alice? I thought it was Annie. Whatever. This like super sweet older woman in her like 60s or 70s, right? Like my ex walks out the door. And she looked at me. She's like, I don't normally say this. She's like, it's not you. And I was like, okay. And she's like, it's not you. Like, you're going to be better for this. Yeah. Trust me, right? And I was like, I guess so. I don't feel better right now. And I basically got drunk for a month and just never woke up. They would call me. And I was in the Marines, right? I would get a phone call. So we had to show up at 6:30. I'd get a phone call at like 8:30. And they'd be like, hey, Sergeant Tim, it's Corporal Powell. Just checking in. Are you on your way in? I'm like, what? Yeah, I'll be there in a little bit. And they'd be like, okay, cool. We're just doing, roll, just making sure you're not UA.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm fine. I'll be there in a little bit. And like 2 hours go by, and they're like, call back. Hey, Sergeant Tim, so we're gonna go ahead and send Lance Corporal Smokatelli to come pick you up. Is that okay? And I'd be like, yeah. Just have him knock on the door and I'll be ready.
Yeah.
And then they'd come get me and like, I just show up and sit down and just be like, because I was fucking miserable.
Yeah. What led to the rehab? What was the thing that
kept just drinking and fights and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. It was,
and how long was that? How long were you there
I think it was 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yeah. It was, and so it's, I had just met Jamie.
Okay.
Right? I had just met Jamie. And literally, like, I don't think I had been assigned to go to rehab just yet. And in all honesty, it's funny, like, going back, I actually was, I was kind of swindled. They told me at this, like, therapy session or therapy place or whatever that they were going to send me to what was called triple threat. So it's for alcoholics and who are suffering or PTSD, suffering from alcoholism and PTSD, right? And they're like, we're going to send you this program. And I was like, okay. And I was like, all right. And as we were getting closer, I was like, this isn't what my paperwork says. And like, no, you have to do this first and then you go to that. It's the same building, right? So the first 6 stories it's called SARP or something like that. It's like this, and then the 2 stories above that is the triple threat guys. Those are the guys that are there for PTSD and alcoholism and all this stuff, right? And I was like, okay. And then I showed up and they're like, no, you're just doing this. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's not what I've been told.
Yeah.
I was super unhappy about it. I actually called like my commanding officer, who is a great person, right? Who like really like, hey, like you got to do this. And I was like, all right, and he was like, I'm sorry, like I don't know, like that's what I said we were good with. Fuck them, fucking Navy, bitches. They, but they're like, yeah, you're gonna go there. I had just met Jamie, and Jamie and my days were basically like she worked and I worked. And then Thursday night, we would go out drinking and go to work on Friday. And then Saturday night or Friday night, we'd go get hammered. And then we'd go, wake up early Saturday, go work out, go drink again, and then do brunch and mimosas on Sunday, and then start rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
That was our first few months of dating. And then I'm like, oh, hey, everybody, I got to take off for a couple weeks. I got to go to rehab. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, whatever. And while we were there, I was like, I think I might take a year off drinking. And Jamie's like, I don't know if that works for me. Because that's not what life she was living. She was out doing the party thing. And I was like, all right, we'll see. But I had, you don't get a cell phone. So you have to, there's no cell phones. There's a computer in the computer room, right? But you have to wear your military clothes all day long. For the first 2 weeks you're there. You can't use the elevator because it's 6 stories and you have to use stairs. It's not until, and there's classifications. So when you show up, you're like a D, and then you become a C, and then a B, and then an A when you're done, right? And then you can use the elevator when you're an A. Or if you have bad knees, you can get a pass. And that's where I did a lot of Reiki healing, sessions. I did a lot of meditation, because they're basically hey, you're in the military, but we can't have you do anything that's military related. So what do we do all day? We have group therapy. We go to AA meetings. I mean, that was you'd wake up and go to chow. Somebody would come by and check your room, right? You'd go to chow. You would go to your morning skill session or whatever. I remember, and I'm super big into fitness and all this stuff. We had this guy come in and he's like, and they're talking about peanuts are a good source of protein. And I was like, shenanigans, let's discuss, right? And they're like, milk is a good source of protein. And I was like, well, let's have what are we talking about, right? Because as much as there is protein, there's probably that much fat too. We'll get into this whole thing. And so you don't do anything all day. You just kind of hang out, and they find things for you to do. And then at the end of the night, they're like, hey, go to dinner, and then you've got AA. And we would go to AA sessions, so out in town, because you can't sit in an AA session with a bunch of people and do it. So we would go. So I went to one session. Jamie showed up, and she totally could have got me in trouble, but I asked her to. It's like, hey, I'm going to be at this Point Loma AA session at the VA Village with all these vets. Will you meet me there? And she'd be like, I mean, can I do that? And we're like, yeah. So I borrow somebody's phone, some 70-year-old veteran living in the veteran. Let me get your fucking cell phone, bro.
Yeah.
And try and call her. And yeah, you would just hang out, watch movies. I read a lot of books, right? Because there's nothing else going on in 6 weeks. And then it was just I got out and I was like, all right. So that was fun.
Do you feel other than just kind of having to go through the experience, do you feel like it was helpful, or what are some takeaways that you feel like you got from that?
I am not an addict. I see what addiction looks like.
Yeah.
I am not an addict. I totally, I read the big book, totally understood, okay, cool. This is where I fall in this, because the same as cigarettes, and this is where I started to, because I wanted to really understand, hey, my dad was an alcoholic, and if I am an alcoholic, then I want to make sure that I can put forth my energies into the thing to make me be a productive member of society. So I want to get into this, right? So I really did this deep dive into it, and they brought up this counselor I was talking to, who was the one that eventually changed my diagnosis. She was like, yeah. She's like, do you smoke? I was like, yeah. And she's like, how long you been smoking? I was like, I've been smoking on and off for 15 years, since I was a teenager, basically. Mm-hmm. And she's like, okay. She's like, if I asked you to stop smoking today, how would that be? I was like, it's not a big deal. I was like, I've quit dozens of times. I was like, I mainly just started smoking because that's what everybody else is doing. I was like, these guys get cigarette breaks. I was like, I'll go fucking hang out with them and smoke a cigarette, right? Whatever. That was the reason why I started, why I would smoke and why I wouldn't smoke. And she's like, okay. She's like, so and she's like, do you have cigarettes now? I was like, no. I was like, I don't even have any. And she's like, when was the last time you had a cigarette? I was like, I don't know, a couple months ago. And she's like, yeah, you're not in it. You don't have that part. Mm-hmm. She's like, somebody who's really addicted to cigarettes, they don't put it down.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where we got into the like, no, you just abused alcohol. I feel like I learned a lot. I really tried to use the time, because there's nothing else to do, to really do some introspective, like learning about myself and to think about that stuff.
Was this like late 20s?
Yeah. I mean, this was 2014.
Okay.
So, 11 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, 30s, really.
Yeah.
I think it was actually right before. It was right before I turned 30. Yeah, so late 20s, right? Okay. Late 20s. And I just try to use that time to learn more about myself and understand things. And I thought it was good. I also really tried to, I knew I was getting out of the Marine Corps, and I really tried to look at some of my, like my PTSD and stuff like that. I will say I left rehab on way more medications than I went into, because they were trying to like, you're not doing much. They're like, hey, let's just fucking hit this guy hard with medical. I was on I went to rehab on I think I had a prescription for like Claritin. I think I left rehab on like 15 medications.
Really?
I mean, and they were pumping me full of just, I mean, everything from mini Prez and Zofran and all these things for depression and PTSD and sleeping and nightmares and night terrors and tremors. And I mean, just anything that they could come up with. I was on a bunch of different things for like just inflammation and pain. And then I think that even went worse, because then I went right from, like, I was lucky in the aspect that when I got out of the Marine Corps, I left active duty medical services and went right into VA medical services like next day.
Yeah.
But like I was on all these different medications and drugs, and that was worse.
I was going to say, did that help at all?
No, it was so bad. Like gabapentin, I was on like 800 milligrams of gabapentin a night, and I would take that to help me sleep, because so I didn't twitch and night terrors and all that as much. But then I woke up groggy, like I was super hungover.
Yeah.
And I was taking all this, and then I mean, Jamie, like I felt bad for Jamie, because I had just gotten out and had no job, was unemployed. We had just found out we were having a baby, and I couldn't get out of bed, And it wasn't until I talked to her about it. I was like, I think I'm going to stop this. Like, this isn't working for me. I got to find something else. And she was like, okay. And we gave it a rip. And I was, I think, better after getting off all that. So yeah. This has been fun. We went from a lot of different things, right? But to tie this all back, I think that there are some people who don't have a religion or a thing, and they just, those efforts and stuff, they just put it on themselves, and they just go about, they don't need that higher power or that thing to go at. And I think that, I'm not saying that people who are religious or anything like that need that, but there's definitely a part of that I think that makes them feel better, right? Safer, more comfortable, at peace, whatever that is. And if they feel better for it and they're happy with all that, then
yeah, I agree. I think everybody needs something to believe in.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to take shape and form of a higher power in a sense. I mean, it's like the people that are, not self-diagnosed, like it's an issue, but, atheists, people that believe that they're atheists, and then that becomes the dogma that they assign to life and the viewpoint that they, move through life with and everything like that. It's still a belief in something.
Yep.
And so I think that's a crucial part, because I think by believing in something that is external from yourself, it gives you context for this experience, as opposed to just moving around as like, and again, even like atheists would believe that nothing happens. Like Ricky Gervais.
Yeah.
I love Ricky Gervais. Such a huge fan of him. And he had that series on Netflix, or gosh, what was it? I can't remember what it was.
He's got a lot of great stuff. The one, like The Invention of Lying, is one of my favorites.
That's a great movie.
What was where he saw dead people? He saw...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he had this one on Netflix. I can't remember what it was.
The one with the cancer? where his wife died of cancer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was such a good show, right?
Yeah.
I love him. He's so good. But, I listen to him on podcasts and things like that. And he, this is it. We die. That's it. This is, there's nothing. This is it. And it's like, cool. That's his belief.
Yep.
And it's shaping how he lives his life.
Yeah.
Right. And he's making good choices and he's living his life in the way that he wants to live and contributing to society in the way that he's choosing and all of those things. And I think that's important. And I think that's what happens oftentimes with people when they lose sight of something outside of themselves and then they just get caught up in, I mean, every time you're, caught up in your own shit.
Yeah.
That's when things spiral out and things get really, really dark and really, really difficult and really, really hard, because I think there is that important component of connection to something else, but it doesn't really matter what shape it takes.
Yeah. I think you gotta,
there's people that use jujitsu for that.
Totally.
Right? Where jujitsu is the thing that is their thing, right? Where it becomes the thing that they shape their life around and the connection with all the people there at the gym and
the community.
Eat, breathe, sleep jujitsu all the time. Donaher walking around in his rash guards 24/7, right? Beautiful, right? He's definitely contributing to society, helping everything,
He's done a lot for the autism community.
He's done a lot. He's done a lot for that little boy, Gordon Ryan, right? It really gave him some direction in life. Gordon could just be sitting there playing video games, eating Cheetos all day long.
Meatloaf! I said this, I think it was this morning or yesterday. I was rolling with somebody and they're like, "Oh, how'd you do that?" I was like, "Well, how'd that happen?" And they're like, "I don't know." I was like, "That John Donaher's full of shit."
It's so funny to look at jujitsu and the people that do jujitsu through that lens of autism, where it's like, oh my gosh, it so fits 100%. The people that stick, like if you make it past blue belt,
oh yeah,
you're totally on the spectrum.
Yeah.
100%. That should be a test. They're like, "Hey, do you do jujitsu?" "Yeah." "What belt are you?" "Well, we hate to inform you that you're autistic."
Yeah, right.
Because you're a purple belt.
Have you seen the commercial where he's like, "Oh, it's a veteran," and he walks into the doctor's office. He's like, "All right, cool." He's like, "So I've got the results back. You're retarded." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "No. Like, I'm not." Like, he's like, "No. The tests confirm it. You're retarded." He's like, "I'm not retarded." I don't know if you can say that stuff anymore.
Well, you just did.
I just did.
You just did.
Bleep
That was
it up.
Ben. Ben said that.
I think I was quoting something.
That's right.
That's okay. It makes it better that way. I think that, the amount of, and we all joke about it, like being on the spectrum and like doing jujitsu and all that. It takes, I think, that kind of, like, you have to have a certain kind of mind to like put it together, because for me, I don't know about you, like I'm visualizing how these things work oh man, I got a new one.
Yeah.
It's an armpit slicer.
Okay.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
I'll be excited to see it.
Yeah. It was one of those, like, I caught it real quick there. Like, I don't like that. I was like, yeah, it's super fun. But I think that, like, that kind of, like, the brain that you need to have to, like, put all that together, I think kind of leans towards maybe some of the things that, kids on the spectrum or people on the spectrum kind of, have in common. Mm-hmm. I don't think that everybody that does jujitsu is on the spectrum, but
everybody that's blue belt or higher.
I was going to say everybody that's good at it.
Right. That's exactly right. If you suck at jiu-jitsu, you're probably not.
Yeah.
You're probably not on the spectrum.
Go get some more vaccines, and then you'll be... Isn't that, because isn't that the claim that the vaccines caused autism?
Yeah, that's definitely,
there's
RFK,
a talking point,
right?
Yeah.
It's all about that, and I don't think that it has been beneficial, but I also think that autism and people that have those type of like tendencies, it's been around far longer than vaccines have, right?
Yeah.
There's, my dad collects G.I. Joe dolls, and he's whatever, like in his 60s or something. So but like obsessively collects the,
like, don't touch them,
the tall G.I. Joe dolls.
Don't touch my doll.
Yeah, they're the things that.
Do you ever see the what's the good? Is it the Good Doctor?
The Good Doctor?
Is it the Good Doctor? It's the kid who's a doctor who's got autism.
Doogie Howser 2.0?
Yeah. But with autism.
Okay.
Right?
Again, Doogie Howser 2.0.
Yeah, solid point. He like sees another surgeon and who's like in his 60s, and he's like, "Oh, you're autistic." And the guy in the surgeon's like, "No, I'm not." And he's like, and the guy goes through and lists all these things, and he's like, "You shut your mouth," because people who are in their 60s and 70s, like that, nobody had those things, right? I honestly think that what we're going to find is, and this is my unprofessional opinion on this, is at some point, it's not a matter of like, oh, I'm autistic or I'm on the spectrum. We're just putting we're trying to show some kind of way to measure the different ways people's minds work.
Yeah.
And there are going to be the people who are super high functioning and the people who are not, right? And the people who can do, some card counting math and the people who can't, right? And it's going to just be these differences. And it's this like, oh, we've called it this thing. But those people have been around forever, right? And will continue to be around. And this, I think it goes into the same as like, it's just a different way of measuring things. How tall are you? How much do you weigh? How much autism do you have? Right.
Yeah, I think Steph and I were talking about it the other day too. It's like neurodivergent or neurotypical.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there aren't neurotypical people.
Everybody thinks differently.
Yeah, it's everybody's neurodivergent, and it's just a big spectrum.
Yeah.
It's just this big, beautiful sliding scale of color that we're all on in some regards. And it's just, I agree completely where it's just a different way to label things and trying to contextualize it and put people into different boxes, as opposed to just looking at it as like, oh, we're all these beautiful things, and sometimes we're over here and sometimes we're over there, but neither one is better or worse. It's just different.
Yeah.
And that's I think the truth of it. And the whole idea of like there is some ideal space, like some neurotypical thing where it's like this is the baseline that we're measuring everything off of, and if you fall outside of that, then you've got X, Y, or Z.
Right.
That's the thing that I think we'll eventually go away from, is the idea that there is some ideal or some baseline or some sense of like not necessarily perfect, but like normal.
Yeah.
Like, this is a normal operating
This is our
human
control group.
Yeah, like fuck that.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I think we have to get rid of, because I don't think that exists.
No.
I think everybody
Got their
is
even
fucked up in some way.
So I always try to think about this as like, who would be a neurotypical person?
I've never met one.
Yeah. The first thing, and I was trying to run through this, and the first thing, not a real person, Ned Flanders.
Okay.
That makes, until you really start to look at who Ned Flanders is, right? He's got all kinds of things that he's like obsessive about. He's obsessive of his old wife, his ex-wife, or his late wife, and like, but he does like. There's episodes where you're like, oh shit, like Ned Flanders does some. Like Ned Flanders is super jacked, right? Right. He's super like in shape, and you're like, oh, that's just his thing, right? He's like, put the kids to bed, and Dad's gonna lift some iron, right? So Ned Flanders is autistic, right? And then it's like, cool.
You heard it here first, folks. Breaking news.
Yeah, breaking news. Ned Flanders, autism. But at the same, and then you go to like, Elon Musk, definitely going to be on the spectrum somewhere, right? And you know what? I'll take that. It's obviously seemed to work out.
Yeah.
Richest man in history, and
Yeah, that's the thing, is like the whole idea, and I think it's so important too for people. I know that for me, that's been a really critical part of healing for me, is just recognizing that the idea that there is something wrong with me because I'm not this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
Right. That's the thing.
There's nothing wrong with you.
There's nothing wrong with me, dude.
I mean, maybe not nothing. But
there's things that need improvement, but that's up to me to decide.
Definitely
right?
things that need improvement.
That's the thing that I get to decide of what I want to change or improve. But there's nothing wrong with me.
No,
everybody's just having this experience, and it's hard. Like the whole idea of trying to navigate this matrix shit. It's super difficult and confusing.
I just love how you like this matrix shit.
It's what it is, dude. We're living in a virtual reality.
Simulation. Yeah, I mean, life is hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are. I don't think anyone has an easy life.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if you grew up in a super wealthy family. Like, there are things that will come with that will be hard. You need to be better at navigating social situations because you're around dukes and ladies and all that, right? If you're a hillbilly, you can learn to punch people in the face because that's what we do, like stuff like that. So life's hard. You're going to get over all this, and you got to get through it. And I think that we're all just trying that, to get through the matrix. Would you unplug?
I mean, I don't think would I unplug from the matrix? If you really want to know what I think, do you really want to know what I think?
I really want to know what you think.
I don't think unplugging from the matrix isn't, when I say it's not a thing, we're choosing to experience this experience. And I think that we get the opportunity to choose to play the game, The Matrix.
Uh-huh.
So it's just a choice. And at some point I'll decide that I want to play it again, maybe. And sometimes, I decide that I don't want to play it,
mm-hmm.
but it's just a game that I get to choose to play. And so unplugging from it isn't like in the movie where he unplugs from it. I mean, it's having awareness that there's actually something that it is a virtual experience, that mm-hmm. it's not reality. That's the part that I think is the unplugging part. And I think that happened to me already. So I don't think it's not somehow like, no longer being a part of the matrix, but it's recognizing that the matrix is the thing. And by the thing, I mean that it is a virtual reality, that it is just this illusion, and that there is something else. That's the part that I think is the unplugging part, is once you recognize that there's something else. And it's not even from the perspective of like, well, I believe, or I think, or I have faith, but it's like once you have a knowingness of that there is something else, that's when you're unplugged from it. But then the opportunity becomes to still be in it. So I'm choosing to be in the matrix for a very specific reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that, because they talk about it in Eastern philosophy and traditions and things like that, where there's a certain level of like not Baba Ramdas, it is Baba Ramdas, but Ramdas, his guru, just was like, okay, peace out, I'm gone. They decide when they leave, and then they leave their body, and that's it. So they unplug at that point from the matrix,
mm-hmm.
in the kind of sense of what, we think about it from that perspective is. But I don't think it's, like, it's not death. I don't think it's death at all. I think it's very much just choosing to experience something else for whatever reason, and for for whatever reason you want to choose to experience something else. But I think that gets to happen all the time. I think we're constantly playing different realities and having different experiences and things like that. So, I mean, I'm unplugged from it, but I also choose to exist in it because I think it's important to do that. It's, I feel like it's an important part of my experience and trying to continually evolve consciousness as a whole. And the whole reason the matrix exists, the whole reason the consciousness created this reality, is for evolution and growth. And that's why we are here, and that's why we get the opportunity to be here and do all these kind of different things. But it's not something that was like gifted to us in a sense of like the way that religion sees it. And it's
mm-hmm.
like, I think I'm grateful for the experience, but I'm part of consciousness. So I am consciousness, you are consciousness, and then we're just these little bits and pieces of consciousness that are playing these avatars, having these experiences in order to evolve consciousness as a whole. So would I choose to unplug? At some point I'll choose to unplug. At some point I'll choose to be like, cool, this avatar's been great, so many wonderful experiences, peace out. And then, I feel like, I don't know what the future holds. I'm getting to a point with my growth and my evolution that I'm pretty excited about what's coming up next.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I'll probably come back just because I think it's fun, dude. There's parts of it that obviously are hard and everything, but like the point of my evolution at this stage, because the theory too is, and I say theory, all of these things are theories, obviously, right? Is when
really
you come back, it's very much like a video game where you save that memory. And it's not necessarily like I remember everything from this experience, but let's say I'm at level 16, right? So when I come back and start over again, I don't start back at level 0. I'm starting back over at level 16. So I'm excited.
But as a new character.
Yeah, as a new avatar, right? That I get to create.
You've got some like
design.
skills and stuff.
Exactly. So, that would be cool, is to see what living a life at 16 would look like.
Yeah.
And then level 20, and then level 40, and, however many numbers we want to create and imagine.
70 when you prestige.
Right. Yeah, I think that's totally what it is.
Yeah.
And so I think at some point, you're at like close to level 100, and then it's like you get to come back. And
it starts over after 70.
It starts over, it resets.
That's Call of Duty.
Is it?
Yeah, Call of Duty, I think it's like 70 or 72. You prestige.
And then that's it.
And then you can like go back through.
Okay.
But now you're a prestige level 1 or I don't know if that's true.
It could be.
It could be. It's like a 15-year-old memery right now.
Right.
Last time I played Call of Duty was like 2009.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I'm following feel like a majority of what you're saying.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. Do you think there is something else after, or in conjunction with this experience? Or do you think that, are you Ricky Gervais in it? Or are you just going back to the earth?
I think that there is something after. I'm not sure if, like, with the reincarnation or if it's just heaven or something like that. It's really hard because for me, I look at it as like I believe your consciousness, like without its physical form, exists, but I don't. If it doesn't have a physical form, then it's just whatever, right? And then it's like, all right, does that just become mixed in? Like imagine, like, consciousness is like a fart, right? Like if I'm in a room and I fart, it lives within that room. But if it's not within a room, and then my fart and your fart mix, right? It's still a fart.
This is the best wisdom. I love this take. I think you need to write a book.
I'll write a book. Consciousness is a fart. My soul is the fart.
The Tao of Ben.
The Tao of Ben.
Consciousness is a fart.
Yeah.
If you fart into a room, it just becomes.
Well, because it's a thing without physical without physical form, right?
I think of it like water.
Yeah.
I think water is the greatest metaphor for it, right? We all come from water. We all are water, and 72%. Water has many different forms. And if you take a drop of water and you separate it from water, it's still water. And then when you put it back into water, it's water still.
Water has three
evaporates,
forms.
It goes up into the cloud, and then it comes back down as rain. It freezes, all the different phases of water and growth, forms. Right? Yeah. But it's all water.
It's still water.
Right. And I think that's just a simple metaphor that helps me oftentimes trying to contextualize it. Because
the soul is water. Yeah. Consciousness is water.
Yeah, we're all the ocean, and we're just living these individual experiences as droplets of water. But eventually we'll go back to the ocean and be back part of the ocean. And then maybe, tidal wave comes and we get thrown back out. And now we're existing as water here in this experience.
The ebbs and flows.
Exactly. The waves.
Yeah.
Eventually we work our way back to the water. Steph and I are going to the ocean.
I know.
We're super excited.
Yeah.
Do you know, did I tell you about it?
No.
Did Steph tell Jamie about it?
No.
How do you know? Did you read my mind?
I didn't. Telepathically, with enough autism, we're going to make this happen. No, you were talking about looking for a place to go.
Yeah. That's right. On Facebook,
right?
We threw it
so
out
I
there.
assumed.
Yeah, our anniversary is next month.
Yeah.
And so we're going to go down to Florida. We found a little beach. It's a great question. I don't remember the name. It's outside of Pensacola. It's basically Pensacola.
Like Destin or
I think it's like Johnson Beach or something like that. But it's right there in that area. We kind of did the math and looked and did a bunch of Googling and trying to find
beautiful
different places. Yeah.
The sand's beautiful. The whole Pensacola, Panama City, like Rose Beach, all that stuff is beautiful.
Yeah. So we got a couple of days down there in an Airbnb, and
Awesome.
we're just going to go. Like the goal is to just, sit on the beach every single day and do nothing. So I'm excited for it.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
In the Gulf of America.
Gulf of Mexico. Come on now. It's temporarily the Gulf of America until a Mexican gets back into office and switches it back.
They call it the annexation of Puerto Rico. I was watching because it just was last night. It wasn't a State of the Union. It was just Trump's he addressed Congress.
Okay.
Right. And he called out that he's like, I've renamed, I can't do a Trump impression, but he's like, the Gulf of Mexico. That's a terrible impression. I'm so bad at Trump impressions. But he was like, it's now the Gulf of America. And I was like, he's like, I did that. And I was like, until somebody comes in and changes it back.
Right?
And then I was like, my thought was like, is this just going to be, because they also changed Mount McKinley.
Really?
So Mount McKinley, they renamed it.
Trump did this or?
No, so.
Back in the day?
Recently.
Okay.
I don't know.
Again, nothing but facts on
nothing but facts
there, guys.
There was Mount McKinley, and then I guess from this conversation that I listened to what he said, somebody had renamed it. Like it's like in North Carolina, like they had renamed one of the mountains to like the name of like the native people tribe that would originally live there at whatever point in time, because those territories changed all the time, and they're like, oh, it's named this, and so Trump came in and he was like, what's it called? And they're like, it's Mount Ikawakawika. And he was like, no, it's Mount McKinley. Change it back. Right. And I was like, all right, does this just mean like 20 years from now, if this becomes a precedent, do we just get new maps every couple of years? Right. At some point, does Tennessee just become, hell yeah?
It's like it's classic white dude thing. Like it's what white people have been doing from day one.
Just renaming
shit.
shit.
Coming over and being like, we're going to call this, but we already have a name for that. It don't matter. We're calling it this from now on.
That's a good white man impression.
It's totally what it is. It's like not a surprise that
your white man
the rich white guy's like, no, we're not going to call that Gulf of Mexico anymore. We're calling it this.
Yeah.
But we already had it named. Like nobody was asking for this, and it don't matter. I've decided we're calling it this. I think that's what it's going to be.
The
called
only thing that would have made
on.
the Gulf of America better is if they would have left the A off. Gulf of America.
America. That's what it should be called.
It's what it should be called.
If we're real accurate about Trump and what he's, it's terrible.
The Gulf of America.
So that's where Steph and I are going, and I'll be flying a proud Mexican flag while I'm down there swimming in it. Right, I'm going to get a Mexican
like swim shirt.
No, what are they called?
Beanie, umbrella,
Speedo.
Towel. Speedo.
I'm going to get a Mexican Speedo with a Mexican flag on my ass and go swim in the Gulf of Mexico. And
what if there's not enough fabric? I'm going to buy you this smallest Speedo I could get, like a shoestring bikini.
You'll see it next on.
I can't wait to see those reels.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We're excited.
That's
like
awesome.
I said, we've got a couple of days planned, and our anniversary is April 8th. So I think it's on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I can't remember which. But we're going to take like 4 days and drive down and just chill.
That's
just
so
take some
cool.
Time off, yeah. We haven't done it in so many years. It used to be the thing that we did all the time.
Yeah.
Like we would have a road trip getaway once a year. And ever since COVID.
Just you and Steph?
Yeah, just Steph and I.
Just be like, hey, kids, don't burn the house down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we take off for the weekend.
There's some cans
and
of
do
tuna.
some stuff. And we genuinely haven't had one since then. I think the last time that we did it was in 2019. We did this whole big California road trip thing and spent plenty of time just together, and it's been great. But I'm excited. Like I said, it's our 10-year anniversary, and it's going to be cool.
That's awesome. I have to figure out all of that stuff right now or soon.
Soon?
Well, because we've got all the birthdays. So it's Jamie's birthday, Mother's Day, our anniversary, Lincoln's birthday.
All in May?
All in the first 2 weeks of May.
Wow.
17 days of May. And it's like, it's a lot of stuff.
When's your guys' anniversary?
May 15th.
Okay.
So.
And is it going to be 10 years this year?
It'll be 9 years this year. Yeah, because we got married in
16.
16. Yeah. Yeah, because Lincoln was born in 15. Yeah. So 9 years, which is crazy, right? It's officially we've way past, but our longest relationships.
Same.
Yeah.
Steph and I mean, we've been together for 13 years.
Yeah.
And we were both married, obviously, to our previous partners. And both of those relationships were right around the 10-year mark. And so we've been talking, as we were talking about this anniversary coming up and kind of getting ready to plan it, it was like we both had like the unconscious thing where we're like, is this going to work? Are we actually going to make it? Like there's a part of us that is still kind of like nervous and scared.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the subconscious part inside.
Yeah.
It's the part that's just like anxious and full of, and we had to talk about it and kind of sit through it and be like, no, this is like, it's a good thing. It's an exciting thing. This is cool. Like we fucking feel really good and everything about it. It's not something that's like,
I thought you were saying like I don't know, do I want to be with you? Right. And I was like, really? Like,
no, it was more of just kind of like all of that, like superstitious things of like, I don't know. It just brings up, because it brings up the past. It brings up all of these things. And so we're like, I don't know. And then it's like, no, this is good. We should be excited about it. It's a good thing. So
that's good.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
Thanks, man.
I think you guys are going to have a great time. Those beaches are beautiful.
Yeah.
I think just sitting on the beach, I think that's like I love going to do stuff and like doing things like that. And especially like if I can really carve out the time for like just Jamie and I.
Exactly.
Right? Like we love just spending time together, and not that we don't love doing it with our kids. We do, right? It's nice to just be us.
Yeah, it's so different. It's
right?
so nice.
Because that's the hard part, especially like with relationships and kids. Like we talked about to the kids about this a couple of weeks ago. Like, like Lincoln and Nora will always be our children. We will always love them, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, like there's a good chance that like, hey, 10 years from now, like get the fuck out of my house. 15 years from now, it'll just be me and Jamie again.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yes, we will continue to love Lincoln and Nora and like our kids and whoever they're with and their kids and all that stuff. But for the next 50 years, I'm going to wake up and be like, hey, what you doing?
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah. We're excited. It's because the nice thing too is like, we don't have to do anything. Like we just like simple things. Like we were trying to decide what we wanted to do. And it's like, really, we just want to relax together. And like, so it's literally just sitting on the beach doing nothing. Like we might go and snorkel or, we might do something here and there and find a little fun thing. But by and large, it's going to just be doing nothing.
Solid.
It's literally like, what did you guys do? We went and just sat on the fucking beach.
Did nothing.
I played in the water with dolphins. It's like we walked around and looked for seashells. It's just going to be super chill. I'm totally swimming with dolphins. I don't know if you realize that.
Watch out.
I'm not like, well, watch out for what?
Dolphins.
They're just dolphins. They're amazing creatures.
Yeah.
I have the ability. Have I ever told you the story about?
Can you talk to dolphins?
I can communicate with dolphins. So when we went to California back in the day, asshole. Here, I'm going to say the dumbest thing ever, and then he's going to agree to it. No, we had this cool story where we took the kids to Disneyland, and it was the first time that we all went. I don't think it was our first big family vacation together. It might have been. We might have done some other smaller ones, but it was the first time that I had ever gone to California with Steph's kids. Mm-hmm. And they're my kids, too. I don't know why I called them Steph's kids.
No, that's all right. I heard it, and that's really shitty of you.
Well, the problem, it's not a problem, but several years ago on podcasting, Stephanie and I made a conscious decision to not use our kids' names. And it's the thing
I fucked that up.
I mean, we just decided it a long time ago. What's that?
You've totally talked about.
I have. I've said that. I've used their names, but it's as I go to speak their names, I always catch it.
Gotcha.
And then I always clusterfuck it out because it's the confusion in my head. But we went to California with our kids. And leading up to that, I was telling Asher stories at night. I was, bedtime stories. I would tell him the story about Billy the dolphin. And Billy the dolphin had all these great adventures with his mom and all these things, and just telling him stories at night before he went to bed. And it was like, buddy, when we go to California, we're going to see Billy. Like, we're going to get to see Billy and hang out with Billy. And so we fly to California, we do the whole Disneyland thing and all that stuff. And then we had to drive north to go up to see my grandpa. And on the way there, we stop at the ocean. There's this beach that we stop at in Ventura, pull off the freeway. There's a great little, not Mexican restaurant, but a seafood restaurant. And it just gives the kids a chance to kind of get out and play in the sand and get in the water. And we get there and Asher's like, are we going to, I'm like, yeah, dude, we're going to see Billy. This little boy, because he was little at the time.
Yeah.
Like when I met Steph, Asher was 6.
Yeah.
So, he,
I was going to say 5, but yeah.
Yeah. He's been a little kid. And so he's standing there, Billy, just hollering, Billy. 20 yards out, a fucking dolphin comes up and starts swimming right in front of us and hangs out in front of us for like 5 minutes.
That's
just
cool.
Sitting there swimming. I'm like, there's Billy, buddy. So we've definitely got the ability to communicate with dolphins.
That's cool.
So when Steph and I go down to Florida, Billy's not only coming, I'm going to be swimming with dolphins. Like I'm 100% going to go out and swim with dolphins in the ocean. And not in like the, hey, you pay somebody and then you go swim with dolphins in their little fucking enclosure. No, I'm going to be swimming with some dolphins.
All right.
So
I'm excited.
I'm excited to show you.
Your whole Billy story did not go the path that I was hoping it was going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, we drove to the ocean. We stopped at this little seafood place. And he's like, Billy. And you're like, here's Billy. And you like plate of food. And he's like,
it was the coolest thing ever. Because it was like, I knew that was going to happen. Because every time.
You knew that dolphin was going to come out?
Yeah, dude. When I go to the ocean, dolphins come to see me. It happens every time I go to the ocean.
Maybe you're just really like dolphin hot.
I'm not dolphin hot.
I mean, you're going to listen.
I am a Pisces, so I come from the ocean.
There you go.
And
I'm a Cancer. That's an ocean, right?
Yeah.
We're crustaceans.
Yeah. But legitimately, every time I go to the ocean, dolphins come to see me. So.
And how many times has this happened?
Every single time I go to the ocean.
I understand every single time.
So, I mean.
If it's only this one time with Billy.
Because we went to California.
You're still factually accurate.
Right? 12, 15, like.
So a dozen
times that I go to the ocean.
A dozen times you've gone to the ocean.
Yeah.
You see dolphins.
Mm-hmm. There was a time when my dad got remarried, which is a completely, that's a whole other fun story that we could tell, that I could tell. Not going to. But yeah.
Tune in next week.
Yeah. My dad got remarried at some point, and it was really funny for a bunch of different reasons. It was the funniest, wackiest thing in the whole world, dude. Because, I love
We're going to talk about it later.
Anyways, he gets married in California on the beach in Caramel. And it's a beautiful ceremony. It's a beautiful thing. And I took pictures of it and did the whole 9 yards. And when the ceremony was over, a pod of dolphins swim up to the beach. So I go out to the water and say hello to the dolphins because they always come to see me when I'm at the ocean. So I'm excited. I'm going to go swim with them in a couple of weeks.
I think that there's a small chance that you're going to come back and be like, how was swimming with the dolphins? You're like, I don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, was everything okay? Was there dolphins? Like, oh, there was dolphins. And I'm just a little concerned that they're going to be like, well, hey there, cutie.
See, you and Steph's like, I don't want him to fuck me.
Yeah,
I'm like, baby, that's not a thing.
I'm so
Googled
glad
it.
that me and Steph are over here like, you're going to get poked by a fucking dolphin.
We Googled it. It's not a thing. It doesn't happen. There's like terrible accounts of made up believe things in the, over the years.
Listen, it's all made up.
Yes. It's all made up. There is one. So, in captivity, right, where dolphins.
That was just angry fucking.
Where dolphins are crazy because we put them in fucking captivity, right? Where they go insane. And
wouldn't the ocean just be a very large bowl or like
no.
fish tank? No, I'm just asking.
The ocean is not just a very large bowl. The ocean is the ocean, dude. Did you know that the ocean is like, what did they say? Oh no, I heard this the other day on Rogan where it was like there's more water in the crust or in the underneath the surface of the earth than there is in the ocean.
I just saw.
And there was something about like
they just found or they think they just discovered like a giant deposit of water.
Yeah,
like a giant like underwater or under dirt.
Yeah. But it's not like a big pond or something. It's almost like it's in the. I don't remember
like
how
the
they
mantle.
It. Yeah. It's kind of like in
deep earth
into the rock though.
Yeah,
like the type of thing where they would have to frack to get it in a sense.
Yeah.
Same kind of concept where it's not just.
That's where the megalodons live.
It's totally where the megalodons live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a chance you're going to get poked by a dolphin?
I'm going to swim with the dolphins, and there's a good chance that like I'll probably try to grab a hold of a fin and do a little bit of surfing with the dolphin. But even if I'm just out in the water swimming with the dolphins, I'll be happy with that.
If you're in the water and then you see a dolphin, does that kind of swim with the dolphins?
I mean, in my opinion, what's going to happen? I mean, not in my opinion. What's going to happen is I'm going to be in the water,
Yeah.
and then dolphins are going to come swim by me, and
What's by me? How I need like
close enough that I can touch,
Okay.
close enough that I could reach out and touch if I chose to,
Okay.
if I choose to, close enough to
Swipe.
reach out and say, "What's up, buddy?"
Yeah, swipe right on those dolphins. They're gonna swipe right. They're gonna swipe right on you.
And you'll hear about it on the next episode.
Listen, I hope you have nothing but the best time
Yeah,
chasing dolphins.
it's going to be fun.
And I'm excited to hear about your conversation with Flipper.
It's been an interesting episode.
This has been a good one.
I didn't know that we were going to go any of these places. So
I
it's
mean,
kind
we
of exciting.
covered some super serious and non-serious stuff.
I love that we suck so bad at like any sort of factual. Do you ever listen to Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard?
Oh, I think I've seen some like side pieces of it or like little clips or whatever.
They'll do a whole episode and then they do a fact check after the fact. And I'm like, there's no way we could do that.
Oh, there's no way.
The fact check for this episode would be 4 hours long because so many of these things were just all over the place.
It would take forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to try to fact check all of these things because we talked about. So, I mean, don't trust anything about the religious conversation at the beginning. None of it was factual.
None of that
obviously.
was factual.
Yeah.
None of the historical things. I actually think that we fucked up the BCE and the like. What's the opposite of? Yeah, we 100% fucked that up.
The TNT,
AT&T, MSNBC.
Yeah,
the Rocket Man. I think this was good though. I mean, it had a real natural flow.
Yeah,
right. It really like we weaved. I think a really interesting story.
We all brought it back to the end.
In how. It's going to be a religious experience when you get poked by a dolphin.
I love you, dude.
I love you. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please take a minute, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. And when you've got some free time, why don't you check out some of these videos right up here. Thanks so much. There's new episodes of Brave Men Dare every week, and we'll see you guys later.